The beginning of the first paragraph of chapter 15, I think is rather funny in that it says, it refers backwards to page 270, which I'll see if it's still 270. Oh, it's 274. Well, that's weird. I did all the updating, but anyway, it may be 274 in your text by now, or it may be 270. That Jig-may-dam-chögya-tsho approves of Zha-mar Gen-düntan-dzin-gya-tsho. And if you go to 274, you'll get Zha-mar Gen-düntan-tsho's dates, which, well, I'll go there. It says near contemporary, and his dates are 1852 to 1910, which you learn about in the note there. So that means he lived for 1852 to 1910, 58 years? Yeah. Which is probably not that unusual, although many of our Tibetan teachers at that, from that era, or any era, lived quite long lives. Many of them did. Many of them didn't. Jig-may-dam-chögya-tsho, 1898 to 46. So that's 48 years only. And in the span of 48 years, he was, as His Holiness and I agreed, I told you that story, he wrote the best from many points of view commentary on Songleness, the Essence of Eloquence. And I'm not acquainted. I haven't looked into the corpus of his writings, even though I wrote some on his life. Amazing. Amazing scholarship. Geshe Tuten-gyatso of Gomang, who came here and stayed for some time, said that a party from Gomang went to debate with him, debate against him, because he was influenced so much also by his Sarache teacher. They went to debate with him, but did not debate. So it's not as if he's a Gomangite, but when he refers to the textbooks, he's referring to the Gomang textbooks. He's one of the great non-partisan teachers. This part about the two realizations, dependent arising, prompting realization of emptiness, realization of emptiness, prompting realization of dependent arising. When I say in the next sentence, we will consider Zha-mar's fascinating exposition. That, of course, doesn't mean in the whole book. It means that small part on this topic. So, what I find amusing in this paragraph is I say we will consider Zha-mar's exposition, but because Zha-mar refutes Ngag-wang-tra-shi, first we'll consider Ngag-wang-tra-shi. So that means that's why chapter 15 has as its title Ngag-wang-tra-shi, then Zha-mar Gen-düntan-dzin-gya-tsho, then Jig-may-dam-chögya-tsho's, response to the two of them. Right? So we get three. And it's very pithy, and it's going back to where we began. It's going back to where we began. Not in this book, way back. We began with, we begin in one place on how to meditate on dependent arising. Then we went to K-Drup's notes on what Tsongkhapa taught him, right? And then we went to what Tsongkhapa wrote about. He didn't say what I was teaching Gyaltsab, right? What Tsongkhapa's version. But we began with Gyaltsab's, which was a bit different, as you remember, from what Tsongkhapa himself wrote about it, we surmise, a bit later. And then it's a bit as if Gyaltsab must have read that, but he didn't go back and throw out his version, burn it, right? He didn't burn it. He let it be. Well, I wrote it, and it's done. Or maybe he never read it. We don't know. We don't have any writing where he eats his own words. The boss said it this way, and it's not how I recounted what he said. But it may be more like, this is how I remembered what he said, and this is what he said. So I'm going to leave it that way. He wasn't the holy grand, Khan. So at that time, really, and if you read the other writers at that time, they felt very free to treat him like another scholar. Whereas later, there's more apology when people rewrite Tsongkhapa. They posit his thought. They feel they have to put up a mask, even though they're still rewriting him. Okay. Now, for those not used to it already, if everybody's used to this, take a poll amongst yourselves and say, Jeffrey's explaining things we all already know. A difficulty in reading debate texts is that part of what the wrong person says is right. And part of what the wrong person says is wrong. And even really smart teachers will tell you it's sort of like, this gets pretty funny. I'm not sure if there are parts in here that are right. And so we've taken on the task of putting in so-called blue type, which is maybe purple, what's right in the wrong person's speech, and putting what's wrong in red. Now we're being very brave. We're saying we've figured it out. Of course, we consult with Tibetan teachers, but not all the time. And even sometimes we disagree. The Goman Khenpo is particularly flexible on these matters, but also he said, I really don't understand what this blue and red stuff is. He's still not tuned into it, which is fine. And it makes things more difficult. But for us jerks, it makes it easier to go back to it. Oh yeah, this part's right, because you can see the blue, unless you're colorblind. And at least one in our group is colorblind, and that makes it really tough. Plus it makes it tough for him to translate it and put in the colors. But we've figured out a way to work it for him. All right, and so as we read this, someone says, right in the first debate that's indented from Ngag-wang-tra-shi, he's famous, you see, for his debate text. And so he's working from Tsongkhapa's text, but by putting it in the form of debate, he's slow walking us through Tsongkhapa's text. Slow walking. So in one way, we have to slow down. In one way, he's stating the obvious. In one way, it's frustrating. Makes it even slower. Makes you want to tear your hair out if your head wasn't, if you weren't, that word I was translating from His Holiness, a head Zha-mar, head red. Why? Red? Because you have shaven. Red head. That means shaven head. You can't pull your hair out. But I'm making a joke on top of that. Zha-mar, head red. Why? Because you're shaven. If you use a metal, a straight shaver, your skin will be red. I guess especially if you're a Tibetan. So you see in Madison, Wisconsin, when he said Zha-mar, head red, red head, I said bald head, the bald-headed ones among you. And I was thinking he was talking about bald-headed people. And that's why I got ribbed by the Madison newspaper. Like I was an idiot and couldn't understand colloquial Tibetan. He was right. Okay, here we go. it follows that the emptiness of true establishment is the meaning of dependent arising. Now, is that a right statement or a wrong statement? Now, this person, when someone says, that's the wrong person, that person's the jerk. And then when you're reading it in Tibetan, I, as the student, have to think, is this a right statement or a wrong statement? This part of the statement. And so we are preventing the new student from having to think hard about this. We're saying, this is right. This part of the statement is right. Now, words like because are just left in black. Because such is explained in Sutra. Is it explained in Sutra? Well, of course it is. Emptiness, true establishment is the meaning of dependent arising. When you think about it, yeah, well, it must be. Is the meaning of dependent arising. Of course it is right. And is that explained in Sutra? Oh, yes, it is. Then it follows, words like it follows that. Sometimes we put that in the blue color. Sometimes, this system evolves. Such is explained in Sutra. Such is explained in Sutra. Okay, that's just repeated. Why? Because the Elephant Prowess Sutra also speaks of such with, or what does it say? If phenomena had inherent existence and so forth. Now, does the note tell you what it says? I was speed reading. Not really speed reading. If phenomena had inherent existence, the victors, as well as hearers, would know such a nature. Well, the victors and hearers who know where it's at would know that phenomena have inherent existence. Everlasting phenomena but everlasting phenomena would not pass beyond sorrow. The wise would never separate from proliferations, the proliferations of the conception of inherent existence. So then, because that wasn't so clear, your helpful translator slightly younger Hopkins, okay, and you can read that. And it's very clear. So it is in Sutra. So that's all backed up. So of course it's in blue. Now indeed, when you have the wrong person saying this stuff, it really puts you in quandary. And so we as translators in the Uma Institute, trying to be helpful, put it in blue so that you know it's okay. And then further reason is because Tsongpa's great commentary says, it's very clear that this sutra teaches that emptiness is the meaning of dependent arising. Oh, if Tsongpa says it, it's got to be right. Because you can state that as the reason, because Tsongpa's got to be right. But, of course, when you go to the debating courtyard, the first thing you get shoved down your throat is, Tsongpa, that you've got to prove it. You get attacked. You've got to stand up for Tsongpa. And somebody attacks you with this, and it's like punches you in the face with what Tsongpa says. And you've got to defend Tsongkhapa, and the other person who's attacking you is like saying Tsongkhapa is wrong. You're such a jerk, you think Tsongkhapa is right. So they go for your jugular, and your jugular is the fact that you want to defend Tsongkhapa. But in this kind of writing, it just sits there as, well, because Tsongkhapa says so. If you accept the root statement that the emptiness is true established meaning of dependent arising, and these nice translators put in what the root statement is. So that's why I said slow walking you. So you get used to how to slow walk. Now if the translators didn't put it in, you would have to put it in. So in a way, the translators are making it so easy that they're making you dumb as you read it, because you're not having to provide this. But it means you can read more. And it means when you go back to this, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time. You know, because in the meantime you forget it, and when you come back to it, you've got to, oh yeah, you've got to think real hard. And in fact, I think it allows me to go deeper. Because when it comes, is this right or wrong, the translation format says it's right. It allows you to go read faster and go think deeper. But it does promote. It doesn't give you the full benefit of having to provide everything. Okay. If you accept the root statement, it follows that it is not reasonable. Oh, it's not reasonable is wrong. And then the part of that sentence that's right is that the emptiness true established meaning of dependent arising. Oh, I'm used to this by now. Because the emptiness of true establishment of pot is not the meaning of dependent arising. That means because not is red, if you drop not out of that, you can turn it into blue. Are you with me? So how can you turn it into blue? The emptiness of true establishment of the pot is the meaning of dependent arising. It follows that you just repeat it, you see? It's repeating the reason. Because there is no way. Now this is red. That means there is a way. It's slow walking. You see the slow walk? And for dummies like me, I need the slow walk. There is no way. There is a way that the emptiness of root establishment of a pot is the meaning of the dependent arising of a pot. You don't mind that I'm reading it fast, right? Now this chapter is going to be worthwhile going slow like this. This is the last chapter we're going to read in this book. This is the crescendo. The crescendo of slow walks. It follows that there is a way, right? You see, you can already read it. There is no way, there is a way. At the end of the true establishment of pot, it's the meaning of the dependent arising of a pot. Now you know why Tibetan teachers read the way they read. Because, and you get three things here. Three things. And they're all in blue. Oh, now we're getting down to it. Now I wrote that book, Absorption in No External World, by going to the end and beginning with the end of these things. Quite often. Because that's the meaning. You get down to the basis. The meaning of this statement that the emptiness of true establishment of a part is the meaning of the dependent arising of a part is not like definition, that not like positing that which is bulbous. I was thinking, is the current word just bulbous? There's something about belly. Anyway, bulbous, flat bottom, able to hold fluid as the meaning of pot. What's the meaning of pot? It's that which is bulbous, right? Flat bottom, because it's got to be able to sit on the stove. It's got to be bulbous. I mean, we could quarrel with this, but able to hold fluid. If it's got a hole in it, it's no longer a pot. It's got to have the function, able to hold fluid. Fluid here is the general element, water. Water here, more broadly, is fluid. Number one, it's not like that. Also, does this ring a bell with you? Stuff that you read earlier? Also, the endless true establishment of pot is not the meaning expressed. Remember that? Meaning expressed by the phrase expressing that a pot is a dependent arising. Remember, there were three things, and it came down to also the expression, the sound, and the thought. Now, if you go back to what Gyaltsab was saying and what Tsongkhapa was saying, and refresh yourself on that, you'll see, oh, he got this stuff from there. And he's walking us through it with different vocabulary. He's trying to drive that stuff home. And if it doesn't ring a bell with you, that's fine. Go back to that stuff. Say, oh, this should have rung a bell. But now it rings a bell. And that's what we want. Like yeah, I had forgotten about this. Or I thought I could hear a little bell. And this is called, learning, getting it to go deeper, getting what Gyaltsab said and Tsongkhapa said to go deeper. Or, I had no recollection at all, but now I can see it. Yeah. How many years ago was it? No wonder it didn't ring a bell. That was 4 years ago. We took so many detours that no wonder I didn't remember it. But now we're tying it back. We're tying back. And in the meantime, we read some really frickin' deep stuff. That poem from, what was it? Oh, that was just a few weeks ago. No, that was last week. From Ngag-wang-tra-shi. Sorry, I'm just making. Yeah, I'm kind of like that.
Getting together.
And Gunjog, there are so many Gunjogs. Jig-may-dam, Jig-may-dam, Gunjog Jig-may-dam. And, it gets like that. I'm exactly that way. And 3, the emptiness of true establishment is not taken to be an object of the mode of apprehension of awareness ascertaining that a part is dependent arising. Oh. We get meaning of is not these things that you would have thought. Now what's occurring to me is that Gyaltsab, didn't he have 5? A list of 5. Tsongkhapa boiled it down to 3. By the time Tsongkhapa put it into print, put it into writing, he had a list of 3. Gyaltsab had a list of 5. So I can't dredge up what were the 2 that dropped out. Tsongkhapa just felt they were too silly, too obvious to bother to talk about, but they were kind of helpful. Gyaltsab's longer list. So look those up, please. Right? Don't you want to? I do. So, that those 3 are so, you could just repeat that in the response. So, in other words, response means us. The right people. That guy was a jerk. But not that much of a jerk. How much is blue, how much is red, right? Does not entail. So where the person went wrong, the end of it was all right, but drew a conclusion from that, drew the conclusion that there's no way that the emptiness, right? The red part, the 3 blues, he was drawing a conclusion from that just above it, that there is no way that the emptiness, true establishment of part is the meaning of the dependent arising of part. No. You see, meaning of the dependent arising of a part has some special meaning, has some special import. That's the point. Our regular sense of meaning doesn't apply here. Our regular way we look at meaning doesn't work here. The things that come to our mind when we think meaning don't work here. You see, that's what Ngag-wang-tra-shi is bringing home to us. If someone says that the first is, this is real slow walking. If someone says that the first reason, which is that the emptiness true establishment part, is the meaning of the dependent arising of a part, is not like, it's not like positing that which is not established. Then the opposite must be true. If you say that's not established, then it absurdly follows that an awareness ascertaining a part as a dependent arising also ascertains a part's emptiness of true establishment. Then as soon as you understand that the definition, the meaning of bulbous, flat bottom, able, whole foot, that's pot, then immediately you'll understand the emptiness of a pot. That's no. It's not that easy. It's not anywhere near that easy. Now we ought to take something a little bit more difficult than, well, for instance, for us, what's a pot? You say, I don't need a definition of a pot to know what a pot is. I don't need these three qualities to know these three qualities to know what a pot is. I've got pots in my kitchen, and I know they're all pots already. So, the example here may be too simple. That may be standing in the way. Let's take something that we don't know. That somebody would have to explain the definition to you, and you'd have to think on it in order to figure it out. And then once you reflect on that definition, you would understand the object. When you understand that object, would you understand the emptiness of the object? No. That's a whole different topic. You would have to reflect on the reasons why it's empty of inherent existence. Do you understand my point? That if somebody who doesn't know what a pot is, you see, we already understand what a pot is. A certain type of fish, for instance, who swims in the water, it has been discovered in the deep of I'm in Virginia, so the Atlantic Ocean. And I explained to you the 5 characteristics of that fish. And you get an idea of what that fish is. Then would you know the emptiness of that fish? No. You'd have to meditate or reflect on the reasons why it's empty of inherent existence. And as far as the reflecting on the dependent arising of it, triggering, coaxing, bringing out a realization, etc. That's a totally different thing also. So it may be that the example here is not going to be very good. The examples are often too easy. But we can use it still. Have I lost you? Okay.
What about if you use the reason that then a farmer would understand the emptiness of a pot, or a cook would understand the emptiness of a pot?
Yeah, or it would be totally out of place. I mean, it actually would still hold. The cook or the farmer would not.
Yeah, would not understand.
Yeah, and we don't, even though we already know what a pot is, just by our practical experience. That doesn't mean we know what the emptiness of a pot is.